Inside Judge Raquel West's courtroom, one man thought he could outsmart the system. Christopher Denzel Lewis, a felon caught with a gun, begged for probation, claimed hardship, and even tried to shift the blame. But Judge West had seen it all before, and when his lies collapsed under the weight of truth, the gavel came down hard. This is a courtroom moment you don't want to miss. In Judge Raquel West's courtroom, Christopher Denzel Lewis stood, hoping for a second chance. He had pleaded guilty to unlawful possession of a firearm by a felon, a third-degree felony, and was now asking for probation instead of prison time. His defense attorney, Miss Holmes, argued that Lewis was ready to change. She presented letters of support from his family and friends, all painting a picture of a man who was respectful and eager to get his life back on track for his family. She highlighted that he was taking responsibility by pleading guilty. The defense argued that Lewis understood the gravity of his situation and that sending him back to prison for another 6 years wasn't the answer. They were asking the court for an opportunity, a chance for him to prove himself on probation. But Judge West wasn't just looking at the letters of support. She had the full pre-sentence report, his lengthy criminal history, and a stack of jail incident reports that told a very different story. Before the defense could even finish, the judge zeroed in on a massive contradiction. Mr. Lewis, you're pleading guilty, but your version of events is that the gun wasn't yours, that it was in your girlfriend's purse, and you didn't even know the purse was in the car. So, which is it? Either you're guilty because you knew about the gun, or you're not guilty, and a jury needs to decide. Lewis tried to explain, saying he was pleading guilty simply because he was the one driving the car. But Judge West immediately shut that down. That's not how the law works. You swore to tell the truth, and you told me you were pleading guilty because you did what they charged you with. The foundation of his plea was already cracking. Then, the prosecutor, Mr. Smith, stood up to make the state's case. He was blunt and to the point. Lewis had been given probation before and defiled. He was revoked and sent to prison. But what really sealed the deal was his behavior in jail while awaiting sentencing. The prosecutor argued that Lewis's actions showed a complete lack of respect for authority and rules, making him a terrible candidate for probation. The state's recommendation was clear: 6 years in the Texas Department of Corrections. This is where things took a dramatic turn. Judge West addressed Lewis directly. She mentioned that his support letters called him respectful, but his jail records were, in her words, the furthest thing from respectful that I've seen. She then began reading from a long list of incident reports. The judge detailed multiple instances of shocking and inappropriate behavior, specifically directed at female officers. She read out the dates, one after another. April 14th, yelling obscenities at an officer. April 7th, engaging in explicit acts in front of an officer. March 25th. Another instance. March 18th, yet another. The reports were from different officers on different days, painting a consistent and disturbing picture of defiance and disrespect. Lewis tried to defend himself. He claimed one of the incidents was a case of mistaken identity and that it was supposed to be removed from his record. He insisted the others were lies, saying, "I sleep on my back. I have sisters Prometa, Abia Mama. I don't do that. Them people write whatever they want." He argued that if these reports were true, he'd be facing formal disciplinary action in the jail, which he claimed he wasn't. But Judge West was not convinced. She pointed out the sheer number of reports from various officers. "So they're all just making this up on you. That's terrible of them to do that," she said, her tone dripping with skepticism. It was clear his excuses were falling on deaf ears. The man his family described in letters was not the man documented in the official jail records. The judge then pointed out another critical fact from his history. Lewis had been out of prison for less than a year before this new arrest. She asked him why he ended up serving his full 8-year sentence on a prior revocation. His answer, just tattooing contraband. Once again, it came down to not following the rules, even while incarcerated. This pattern of behavior was impossible to ignore. The courtroom was silent as Judge West prepared to deliver her verdict. The letters of support, the pleas for mercy, and the flimsy excuses had all been heard. Now, it was time for the consequences. Judge West looked directly at Lewis and delivered her final ruling. She found that his guilty plea was entered freely and voluntarily and found him guilty of unlawful possession of a firearm by a felon. Then came the sentence. I sentence you to a term of 6 years in the Institutional Division of the Texas Department of Corrections. She informed him that he had waived his right to appeal as part of the agreement and told him frankly that he was lucky. The prosecutor, she said, had been generous. With his criminal history, he could have been charged as a habitual offender, facing a much longer sentence. The plea deal he thought he could manipulate was the only thing that saved him from an even worse fate. As the bailiff led him away, Judge West gave him one last required warning about his ineligibility to ever possess a firearm again. So, what do we take away from this? Christopher Denzel Lewis walked in asking for mercy. But his actions, both past and present, told a story of defiance that no amount of excuses could cover up. Judge West looked at the total picture: his criminal history, his failed probation, his defiant behavior in prison, and his blatant disrespect in jail. The letters from family couldn't erase the pattern. In the end, the courtroom is a place where credibility is everything. When you claim to be one person but your actions show you're another, the truth will always come out, and justice will be served. What are your thoughts on this case? Do you think the 6-year sentence was fair, or was Judge West too harsh? Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you find these courtroom stories as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another case. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.